Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Greatest Attorney Chronicles. I'm recording this episode 2 days after the last one, so my voice is better now. So I am ready to destroy it again and finish off this case. So for now, let's get into this cross-examination. Oh boy, what voice did I give you? Yeah, I should have worked this out before I started recording.
I asked the Englishwoman for an interview, but she declined, so I left the hut without making a fuss. Then, watching secretly from outside, I saw the woman being stabbed and the other witnesses come running. The detective realized that the victim still had a pulse, so he ran off to fetch help. That's when this writer man here asked the woman a very significant question. But he didn't say anything about that in his testimony, which is why mini-mimoism demands I reveal it now.
Oh, so Soseki didn't say anything, which means we might have an interruption here. That's going to be interesting. You mean to say the victim?
The victim regained consciousness? And when she did, you decided to ask her a question?
That's, true, yes.
He did, and that's not all. The woman gave him a very definite answer. An answer that incriminates the accused. This is preposterous! Why am I only hearing about this now? Why didn't you mention this before, you yokel hack?
It wasn't even a conversation! Yes, I did pose the withering English rose a question, I won't deny it. But she could no longer speak. She was barely conscious even. Counsel for the defense, I expect a thorough cross-examination to be conducted here. This court must and will know the truth.
Absolutely, Your Excellency. The reporter is claiming that Miss Brett implicated Ray somehow? What on earth could have happened in that hut?
Tensions are getting high. I'm interested myself to see what the hell he said here. So let's go ahead and press everything, why don't we?
You asked her for an interview, you say? Well, of course I did. I wanted to ask her about the incident she was involved in at the end of last year. About the case in which Dr. John H. Wilson lost his life. That's not the way I phrased it. Mini-mimoism calls for straight talking. Why did you murder Dr. Wilson, is how I put it to her. Yes, that sort of talking is as straight as a ruler. Ask every question, as if you're asking for a menu in a restaurant, I say. It's the best way. A veteran at the paper taught me that. And how did Miss Brett answer? With one simple phrase. Mystery is a woman's charm. Whew, that told me. So I waltzed right out of there. Really? Something about that doesn't quite seem to fit together.
Mystery is a woman's charm.
Leave every room as if you're waltzing in a dance hall, I say. It's the best way. A veteran at the paper taught me that.
Same guy or a different guy?
Hold it!
Okay, so what you gotta say about this.
That was very persistent of you, considering that Miss Brett had just turned you away. Persistence wins the prize. Any mini-memoist will tell you that.
It's just a tongue twister every single time he says that.
Let them think you've left, then just when they lower their guard, that's when you swoop in for the scoop.
I wonder if this guy's like the predecessor to Lotta Hart. I hope not. Jesus Christ.
And the fruits of your labor are all too apparent in this telling photograph. Though I'm sure the young yokel student would rather not be reminded of this damning evidence. Actually, it's thanks to that photograph that we managed to identify this witness. And now that you've found me, I'll tell you whatever you want to know. I've got nothing to hide. I'm sure. Please, do go ahead, witness. The court is eager to hear what you have to say. Try to stop me. There's a story to tell here, and I'm gonna tell it. The detective realized the victim still had a pulse, so he ran off to fetch help.
And Soseki-san remained behind in the hut?
That's right, yep. Our author friend here was a blabbering wreck, shaking all over from his head to his toes, mustache twitching, eyes bulging.
What do you expect? You don't know the terrifying troubles that taunted me whilst traveling abroad. Back, behind, baleful bars. They'll be coming for me, surely. That's all I could think. I felt as though I were grasping for air, drowning in a sea of cold sweat. He's pretty good at this author thing.
Poor Soseki-san, his experiences in London have scarred him deeply.
As the world seems to close in around me, I quietly recited a prayer to Amida Buddha. Eternal emptiness, empty eternity. The end is coming for me, surely. I think you're just saying words now. No sutras are to resound in my courtroom, please.
And now we come to the crucial part. That's when it happened. That's when this writer man here asked the woman a very significant question. What question? What exactly did he say? Well now, you should hear that from the horse's mouth, I think. Don't you, Mr. Writer Man?
Ugh!
Out with it, you yokel hack! What did you say to her? What did you say to the dying Englishwoman?
Well, in truth, I'd been catching crabs at the water's edge and building castles in the sand, you see. Well, the seaside is a place to be at leisure, I suppose, even for a grown man. But then all of a sudden, from that little beach hut, a young girl's panic-stricken cries for help pierced the air.
Ray.
I ran up to the beach to see what was happening, to find the defendant leaning over the collapsed victim. As soon as Inspector Hosonaga saw Miss Brett on the ground, he sprinted off to get help. And then, just a moment later, I heard a faint moan. A moan from the dead Englishwoman. I nearly jumped out of my skin!
But what did you ask her, Soseki-san?
I asked her, who did this to you? That's a significant question. Don't protract this any longer. How did the Englishwoman respond? She didn't! She said nothing in response. But... Hello? When in the stand, you will answer the questions asked of you unambiguously. Unambiguously. Jesus Christ. Now, without evasion or reticence, I demand that you amend your testimony. I will! Extra statement. Here we go. But she never replied.
So you tried to find out who the culprit was?
He who asks a question is a fool for a minute. He who does not remains a fool forever. And having been labeled a criminal twice during my time in Great Britain, I was quick to make up my mind. Better to be a fool for a minute than remain a fool in prison forever.
However, you've indicated that the victim failed to respond, is that correct?
I know why. I know why the Englishwoman said nothing. She was ignoring me because of my stupid mustache, because I'm Japanese.
Oh dear, Soseki-san really has developed a dislike for the English, it seems.
Having read the report on his time in Great Britain, I can't say I'm surprised at his xenophobia. But the Oh, different person. This is mini memo.
But the Englishwoman didn't ignore you at all, did she, Mr. Writer Man?
Well, yes, all right. She did respond in a manner of speaking, I suppose. Oh, an extra one. She just lifted a trembling finger and pointed in the direction of the defendant.
Where was the defendant standing? Miss Brett pointed a finger at the defendant? Soseki-san, is that really true?
It's not easy to stand here and say this, but when we first entered the beach hut, the Englishwoman was sprawled on the floor before us, with the student girl standing on the far side of her. And when I asked who did this to you, the Englishwoman summoned her last ounce of strength to point a trembling finger at the back of the hut. Which was, it can't be denied, in the direction of the student girl who stands accused today.
Could also be pointing behind her because she was stabbed from behind, right? No.
Soseki-san, why on earth did you neglect to mention this in your original testimony? But fiddlesticks, I say! This is not a British court of law. You will respond in Japanese. Yes, of course. The Englishwoman did point her finger towards the back of the hut, but I was trembling, and she was trembling, and everything was a blur. And thinking about it, I feel as though perhaps she was pointing in a slightly different direction. Actually, no, not slightly, in a very different direction to where the student girl was standing. To somewhere in the back of the hut, where nobody was standing at all.
You mean that your memory of events and the direction in which the victim was pointing are both unclear?
Yes, that's it, unclear. And I'm very, very unclear. Well, we all knew that.
Your Excellency, surely this proves the matter beyond all reasonable doubt.
These voices are so varied that it's kind of difficult to go from each to each.
Yes, the woman may barely have been conscious, and yes, perhaps her finger wavered slightly. But there can be no doubt that this was an attempt by the victim to confirm the identity of her assailant. Why?
Oh, it's an addendum.
Why? Because as the court can see, there was no one other than the accused in the direction the victim was pointing. It is now abundantly clear that no one besides the accused could possibly have committed this crime.
I disagree, bitch. I am inclined to agree. And in the absence of any credible argument to the contrary, I believe we can now conclude this trial.
No. No! The headline's writing itself. Dashing lawyer's hopes dashed. 92 point across the whole page. We'll do an extra edition.
This is a serious blow, Susato. Unless we're able to identify the true culprit and substantiate our claim with evidence, the judge will give his ruling, and the trial will be over.
But that's impossible, Father. We don't even know how the crime was committed yet.
Impossible though the task may seem, we have no choice. We must think back over everything we've learnt thus far. Somewhere in all those details, I'm confident we'll find the clue we need.
Ray gave us her account of how the events unfolded in the defendant's antechamber before the trial resumed. She told us what happened at the precise moment Miss Brett was killed.
Yeah, she was stabbed from behind, outside the hut.
The Englishwoman was sitting at the back of the hut, listening to what I was saying. And then, a moment later, she suddenly got to her feet. Before collapsing on the floor in front of me, with a knife in her back. How could Miss Brett have been stabbed in the back in a beach hut that was empty but for herself and Ray? Somewhere amid all the information we've gathered so far, there must be an answer to that question.
I take it then that the defense has nothing further to add.
So, the gallant yokel student's luck finally runs out. I can't say I'm surprised.
In that case, I am ready to deliver my final verdict on this matter.
This is a crucial turning point now. If I can't establish what really happened, it's over. Where was the real culprit hiding? And how did he or she stab the victim?
I know how.
Objection!
Hey! Ooh, he's sweating.
Your Excellency, I respectfully ask you to postpone your adjudication for the time being.
Oh? To what end, counsel?
The defense would like to present the court with an alternative theory. An alternative theory that can explain who the victim was actually trying to implicate with her dying gesture. An alternative theory? Ha! None exists! There was someone else present at the scene who could have committed this crime. What? And the victim, Miss Brett, tried to reveal who it was to those around her at the time by mustering all her remaining strength and pointing a trembling finger in the killer's direction. This is fiction! Fantasy!
Very well. As you seem so sure of yourself, counsel, I am prepared to hear your alternative theory. So, Yon Ryutaro Naruhodo.
Yes, Your Excellency.
You will present your latest theory to the court by any means of this plan. Or, by means of this plan. At the moment the victim was stabbed, where exactly are you proposing the culprit was concealed? Oh, I think he was behind the stool right out here. And I don't know where the guy was taking the photos from. I think it was like right here-ish. But yeah, it's Mr. Bitchman. So I'm absolutely just presenting this because I'm 100% sure. Naruhodo-san will never give up, and I'm a Naruhodo now. The true culprit who fatally stabbed Miss Brett was concealed in this location here. Are you mad, Counsel? You're suggesting the culprit was outside the hut? What? I do like doing his screeching screams. Even though my voice is, like, naturally lower, I do like pitching it up to do that. That's fun. Order, order, order! But student lawyer Naruhodo-san Esquire, that makes no sense at all. You've just pointed out the exact spot where I was hiding to get my scoop snap. But I didn't see any suspicious individuals loitering about, I can swear to that. Obviously, if the culprit had been outside the hut, there was no way that he or she could have stabbed the victim who was inside the hut. Actually, Prosecutor Ouchi, there is a way. Ah! And in point of fact, the defense can provide evidence strongly suggesting that is precisely the way Miss Brett was killed. You're bluffing. You're bluffing, you yokel. The defense's assertion is clearly too fantastical for the court to comprehend. You will need to give us more guidance, Counsel. What piece of evidence corroborates your theory that the victim was stabbed from outside the hut? Well, I think it's this, because you can see in the back here that there's a gap right where she was sitting. But it could also be the fact that, you know, he had ripped open a portion of the thing to get a scoop. So I'm gonna save real quick before I present my first thought. Where is it? Okay. I couldn't tell which thing the thing was highlighting. Okay, so saved. And then I'm gonna go with this first. The original photographic print of the crime scene. Yes, it's clearly visible in this print. The trace of the fatal thrust that was delivered from outside the beach hut. Do you take us for fools? There's no hint of any such thing! I'm not sure that everyone present would agree. Someone, at least, appears to have noticed what it is that I'm referring to. Uh-oh. Counsel, once again, I must call on you to be explicit for the court. Where on this photograph is the trace of the stabbing, which you claim took place from outside the hut? Yeah, it's just right there. Ooh. Look closely, just here. In the screen at the back of the hut, you can see the effects of a blade having been forced through the reeds. No! I can't! I can't see any such thing! It's true that the hut in question had 4 walls as you'd expect, however. By parting the reeds, a knife blade could easily penetrate them. This is extraordinary. Yes. The true culprit actually stabbed the victim from outside the beach hut. Ugh! And of everyone present at the scene, there is only one person who could have done that. Only one person who was directly outside the hut when Miss Brett was killed. Raiten Minimemo-san, it could only have been you! No! Objection! This preposterous idea leaves me almost speechless. Just look at the photograph again. The victim lies almost exactly in the center of the beach hut, does she not? Are we to assume, as part of this farcical scenario, that the assailant was a knife thrower? No, of course not. We're not? If you recall the testimony of the defendant about the events just before the victim's death, inside the beach hut, I confronted Miss Brett, but she just sat on a stool at the back of the hut, smiling sweetly at me as if she knew she was untouchable. A stool? Have another look at the photograph. The slit in the reed screen.
would align perfectly with the back of a person who was sitting on that stool.
My word! So, in fact, the victim was...
Killed while sitting on that stool by a stab wound to her back delivered through the reed screen. Ah! Having been attacked, Miss Brett rose to her feet instinctively. But then, unable to speak, she collapsed on the floor in the middle of the hut. Before the defendant, Mimbami-san's appalled eyes. And that, Your Excellency, is the truth of what happened on the beach that day. By your silence, Minnie-Mimo-san, I take it that you don't deny the charge? This is absurd!
Ooh, we're not done yet, though. We're not done yet. We gotta prove everything. That will do. It would appear that we have a tacit admission of guilt from the witness. Accordingly, this court has successfully established the truth of this matter, which means that the defendant, Mimbami-san, is innocent of the crime.
Oh, thank goodness. I finally made him cave.
Well, he hasn't said anything. I must say, I've never been more proud.
No, this can't be. The Ouchie clan can't. What of my growth? What of my growth of hope? My growth of hair? It wasn't all an apparition. I can't accept this. I won't.
I see no reason for the continuance of this trial. I will therefore move to conclude proceedings by delivering my final verdict and...
Hold it.
Yep. Nah, it's not going to be that easy. I mean, come on. Come on.
Well, this is all very convenient. This is how the highest court in our mighty empire delivers justice, is it? Suppressing well-meaning citizens' freedom to speak and branding them as criminals. But we've established that the victim was stabbed from outside the hut through the reed screen walls.
And no one but you was in place at the time to have his hand on the hilt of the blade. It's a perfectly logical deduction.
So your argument hinges on the location of whoever stabbed the English woman, does it? Well, it seems a little irrelevant now. Irrelevant? Where she was stabbed, how she was stabbed. It doesn't matter. I mean, whether she was stabbed at all makes no difference if you think about it. After all, this trial's already shown the whole thing hinges on something else.
Oh, he's gonna go ahead and say that she died by poison and that it didn't matter whether she was stabbed or not.
What are you talking about? Brace yourself, little man. I'm talking about the fact that everything's changed. Because of the dirt you dug up. What?
Enough obscurity. Explain yourself, witness.
What's to explain? I'm talking about the poison, of course. The poison? Let's ask the professor for a comment on the situation, shall we? I understand that a deadly poison you were developing was stolen from your lab, correct? And it's been shown that this poison was administered to the victim, Miss Brett, is that right?
That is correct. The unusual constriction of the victim's pupils are a sure sign that this particular poison was used.
I see. So, presumably that means that the victim already had the poison in her body before she was stabbed.
Given that her pupils were clearly constricted, it seems highly likely, yes. If she had been dead already, the poison could not have circulated in her blood.
How refreshing to hear the argument of a metropolitan mind. Precisely, it matters not a jot who stabbed whom, in whose back, and with whose blade.
I just thought about this, right? I just thought about this. I know how she was killed. It makes perfect sense now. So, we have to prove that she was poisoned. I think he stabbed her first. Then, afterwards, he stabbed her again, but it was, well, I don't know exactly how to say this, but it was like he injected her with that pin, with the poison. So she was stabbed first, but then she was injected with the poison. Either that, or she was stabbed with the pen injected with it, and then he stabbed her in the back. It could have been a 1-2 there. But the question becomes, somehow she got a hold of the pin in the process, which is why I think the pin was stabbed second. But it's kind of weird if that's the case. So there's some method there that was used, but he stabbed her with the pin as well, and then she got a hold of the pin, and that was like the fatal mistake. Because, of course, if he got that pin back after he had injected her, there would be no trace that she had been poisoned. Like, there would be no canister for the poison or anything like that. And he also would be writing with the pen in court right now. But instead he's having to use his pencils, right? So, that's where I think this is going.
Because, quite simply, the Englishwoman's life was taken not by the knife, but by the poison. But that can be explained by the poison being on the blade, as I already...
Nah, they tested that.
Forgotten already, have we, yokel? During these very proceedings, the lab of the professor at your side assisted in proving that the blade of the weapon used to attack the victim had no trace of poison on it whatsoever. Ugh. So let me get this down. The facts, as skillfully established by the defense in this trial, turn out to be a headline-making red herring. Is that about right?
Well...
Ah!
Order! But where does this leave us? How, in that case, did the poison enter the victim's body? There is an undeniably obvious answer to that. The lady most likely imbibed it.
You mean she drank it?
Have another look at the photograph here. As you can see, a bottle of carbonated water and a glass had been knocked onto the sandy floor of the beach hut. So we're moving away from grape juice because that didn't exist at this time, and instead we're using carbonated water. I actually don't know the history of soda, so I don't know how long it's been since carbonation started being injected into drinks, so I don't know. Maybe it was around in the early 1900s. The poison could have been slipped into either.
So somebody made Miss Brett drink it. Well, what do you know? Look at those dashing eyes. This will make for a great front page shot. Hey, why the bewitching stare? After all, I'm the last person you should be looking at. It would make no sense at all that I poisoned the woman, would it? I mean, that's been established already. Established? What are you talking about? Don't tell me you've forgotten. That's a little hard to believe, given that the person who established it was you. Me? What on earth does he mean? Ooh, let me capture those wide eyes. This is prime press fodder, this is.
It would seem that this trial is not destined to end yet after all. You know, I think the press, the paper that he works for, probably absolutely despises him, because the pictures in this time period are probably really expensive, right? The film for it and everything. So the fact that he's just nonchalantly taking millions of pictures over there it's probably pretty financially taxing on both him and the press. So yeah, I think they're probably looking for a way to get rid of him anyway. I hereby call upon the witness to give further testimony.
That's great, that is. Let me get a shot of that magnificent beard, Your Excellency.
You claim it to be impossible that you were one responsible for administering the poison to the victim. Not one for flattery, I see. What does his beard actually look like? I'm trying to picture it. It's so weird. They're like really big paintbrushes, except they don't have like the tips to them. It's like he cut them off. It's very weird. They're like brooms almost. So he has like multiple different broom bristle, whatever the hell you want to call it, broom heads for his beard. You will explain to the court in your testimony the basis upon which you make such a claim.
I'm a journo, and I'm a man. I've never tried to run or hide from anything in my life. And I'm not about to start now, because that's mini-mimoism. For a brief moment, I thought I'd illuminated the truth, but it slipped right back into obscurity again. Just where is this trial going to take us? Ooh.
Alright, into the testimony. Complete innocence.
Oh yes, I stabbed the English woman.
Oh, we get the allegro here. We're near the end, I see.
Oh yes, I stabbed the English woman, and it's that very fact that proves I'm innocent. Because why would I have bothered to stab the woman if I'd already poisoned her? When I heard the student girl and that pompous English murderer arguing, it got my goat. If the courts weren't going to punish Brett for what she did, someone else would have to see justice done.
Oh, so that's your story, huh? You're a man of justice?
So, you admit it then? That everything happened as I described? That you are the one who stabbed Miss Brett in the back through the read screen? You can blame this miserable country of ours. A country that bows to the pressure of foreign powers and lets murderers walk free. What kind of future can a country like that have? That's why I did it. I did what our pathetic leaders didn't have the guts to do. Slap bang in the middle of that charming lady's back. I plunged the blade of sweet justice right in there.
Yikes. Yeah, I don't think anyone's laughing with you about that one.
As someone who spends his life seeing that the truth is told, I feel really, really awful about giving false information in my testimony before. But as it turns out, there was somebody else who had it in for the victim and got to her before me. That's right, you guessed it. That pretty little student girl. Now there's a woman after my own heart. You're implicating Ray again. She's the one who gave the poison to the English woman and ended her I was gonna say pathetic, but that works. That actually works too. Pitiful existence. And suddenly, snap! This journo here is off the hook.
The argument is sound, certainly. If the witness had administered the poison himself, he need only have waited for it to take effect. Subsequently stabbing the victim in the back would have been entirely nonsensical.
And therefore, this reporter had nothing to do with the poisoning. Yes, it's all quite logical. That's right, it is. Logical and true. I'm glad you've all seen the light. Justice at last! This is unbelievable. And after I'd made so much progress in proving his guilt, is he going to get away with it now?
Probably not. There you go.
Think of Kazuma-sama and Naruhodo-san. They never stopped looking for a way forward until the judge's final gavel.
Very well then, counsel. Proceed with what I assume to be your final cross-examination in this trial.
Yes, Your Excellency.
The final one, huh? The pin comes into the somewhere. I feel like I'm gonna have to press, because there's only 4 statements here. So here we go.
So, you do admit that you had murderous intentions toward Miss Brett, then? Ha! The woman's very existence offended my sense of justice. Your sense of... He's claiming some sort of righteous indignation? She was pure evil, a cold-blooded killer who'd committed murder right here on our empire's soil. But did our good-for-nothing government do anything? Not a chance, so I had to step in. Fly the flag of justice, put things right for the people. Yes, it was my civic duty. That's what drove me to do it. So, in summary, murderous intentions then. Whatever you want to call it, the point is this. That Englishwoman was a blight, so I had to do what was right for society. Yet a real wrong was done by the student girl in the dock, a crime for which she must pay. Obviously, because the poisoning was nothing to do with me at all.
Hold it!
So you still maintain that you didn't give the poison to the victim? Obviously, that'd be like putting a belt on your trousers when you were already wearing braces like these. The accused administered the poison, following which this witness stabbed the victim. An unforgivable act, certainly, but not one of murder. That crime rests on the accused's shoulders. That is how the law works, you see, yokel. Who knows, you may even learn something here today.
2 consecutive attempts on her life in the space of minutes? Quite a day for the victim.
Do something... Oh, that's the wrong voice. Do something that evil and you've got it coming. That's how the law works. The law of reckoning. That's not the kind of law this court upholds.
You will reiterate why you are compelled to stab the victim then, witness.
Hold it!
What exactly were they arguing about? About what happened to that restaurant 9 months ago, that's what. The student girl was laying into the English woman for killing her beloved mentor, Dr. Wilson.
Yes, John H. Wilson. A professor of medicine, invited here from England by Professor Mikotoba, no less.
Right, but the English woman just jeered. Her case was to be heard by the British Consular Court in Shanghai. However, there was little doubt that she would simply have been acquitted and sent back to her homeland a free woman. It was eating that student girl up inside, you could see it. I really felt for her.
Ooh, here comes Ray.
Yep, she's not gonna stay silent on that one. I can't stand here and listen to this tripe. Ray, young girl, you stand accused here. You can't just blurt out whenever you feel like it. No, you can't. Sorry, but I'm in the middle of some very important testimony here. Just keep quiet and listen. But this awful man is making all of this up. Susato, please, you have to make them listen.
Add her as a witness. Add her as a witness. Return to the dock at once, Mimbami-san. We are in the middle of a cross-examination.
Your Excellency, please, I implore you. That journalist is clearly not a trustworthy witness. Exactly! He's a filthy, rotten, black-hearted, bigoted, dirty, great peeping Tom! That's what you have issue with first? Whoa, take it easy there. Please, I really think that the court should hear what the defendant has to say. Your Excellency, I see no need whatsoever to entertain the accused's remarks.
Uh-oh, it's up to him. I will grant the request of the defense. Hell yeah! Beard man coming in clutch.
But, Your Excellency!
This is likely to be the final cross-examination of these proceedings. As such, I believe it would be ill-advised to stifle the defendant's obvious concerns. So, whilst recognizing that this contravenes regular protocol, I hereby call upon the defendant to speak.
Oh! Thank you so much, Your Excellency.
Ooh.
Oh, so she adds a statement. It was nothing to do with Dr. Wilson. We were discussing the stolen poison.
Ooh, okay.
The stolen poison that killed the victim, you mean? I suspected her of being the one to steal it. I mean, just think about how she killed Dr. Wilson.
That's true. Additionally, Miss Brett certainly had knowledge of the new poison. But surely it would have been no easy task to steal a highly secret toxin being developed for the government? Indeed, all visitors to the lab are thoroughly searched when they leave. Even if a thief managed to avoid being seen by myself or a colleague, getting the poison out would be very difficult. That's true. I pestered Professor Mikotoba until he agreed to show me the poison when I visited his lab. But as I left, I was searched from top to tail. Miss Brett rather bluntly revealed the existence of the toxin we'd been developing, you see. And since Soseki-san expressed such an interest in it, I felt unable to refuse. Obviously, I gave nothing away, other than the fact that it was an extremely potent substance. I'm very ashamed of myself. It's just that I've had a singularly terrible experience with a deadly poison. I wanted to look my old enemy in the eye. Surely you can understand that?
To find out if my suspicions were true, I confronted Miss Brett about the poison. I told her that if there were to be an incident involving it somehow, it wouldn't just be the university. The military would be dragged into it. The whole government even. It would be a complete disaster.
And how did Miss Brett respond to your concerns?
She just curled those beautiful lips up of hers, and she said she didn't know the first thing about it. In English, actually.
Ah, yes. Minimimo-san, the one small question, if you don't mind.
I do mind. Can't you see I'm busy?
Clearly, you were outside the beach hut listening in whilst the defendant and Miss Brett were conversing. Presumably, then, it was you who wrote this article about what you'd heard? Exclusive. Deadly poison stolen from Yume Medical Research Laboratory. The story was published in this morning's edition of Shoyu News. The details are too accurate for it to have been written by anyone else.
Sorry, don't know what you're talking about. Yes, look at this! The entire article is almost what I said to Miss Brett, word for word. Ugh! Well, Minimimo-san, as a journo and as a citizen of a free country, I don't have to reveal my sources. That's a founding principle of Minimimoism. Father's clearly right about this. That reporter did write that article, and he based it on what he overheard from outside the hut.
Ooh, okay. So we update that.
So that's what it was all about. You were trying to cover up the fact that you were listening in. That's why you came up with that stinging story about me arguing with her. Shut up! My stories never stink! Look! Whatever you say, little girl, it doesn't alter the facts. Your Excellency, there's something I want to say, and I want it to go on record.
We've got him flustered now. This is where he slips up. Very well, you may amend your formal testimony. Yeah, he's flustered now.
The point is, if you'd poisoned someone, there'd be no reason to then go and stab the person as well.
Hold it!
I guess we'll press this.
Perhaps you doubted the efficacy of the poison and sought to make sure your victim would die. That's horse dung. What? That would be like pouring pepper on your Chinese ramen before you'd even tasted it. Completely reckless. Although, it might surprise you to learn that I am a bit of an impetuous pepper pourer as it happens.
I hate your alliteration.
Once the victim had taken the poison, she would have been only minutes away from death. And yet, this man then proceeded to stab her in the back as well. There has to have been a good reason for that.
If it was the reporter who gave the poison to Miss Brett, then clearly, he must have done it prior to Ray entering the hut.
Yes, that's undeniable.
But between him leaving the hut and the victim being stabbed, there was one very crucial change in the situation.
Sorry? What change?
Hold on, let me reread that because I was more focusing on the voice acting and I didn't process it. So, if the reporter who gave the poison to it was the reporter who gave the poison to Miss Brett, then clearly he must have done it prior to Ray entering the hut. But between him leaving the hut and the victim being stabbed, there was one very crucial change in the situation. Between him leaving the hut and the victim being stabbed. The reporter overheard the conversation between Ray and the Englishwoman.
Ah, yes, that's it. That's when Minimimo-san first found out the exact nature of the poison he'd used. That could be the key here.
Oh, so that's what they're saying. So we're working on the time of events here. If the victim had unwittingly taken the poison already, then the reporter would have no reason to stab her. On the face of it, that logic sounds entirely reasonable. But he didn't know exactly what the poison's potency was. And he also didn't know what the effects of it was, or what the effects of it were. So when he learned that in that conversation, he had to stab her to cover up it up, because he's like, oh, I've already killed this woman because she's about to die. Oh, I think I passed over that without reading it. But then, once he learned the potency, he's like, oh shit, I fucked up. She's gonna die anyway, so I might as well stab her so that it looks like she died from poisoning by the student girl, so that I don't get caught for it. But why poison her in the first place is the question. Like, is it for his sense of justice, or is it for something else? It's confusing to me.
On the face of it, that logic sounds entirely reasonable. But there's no question that this man was responsible for Miss Brett's murder. If we could think of a plausible explanation as to why he might have stabbed her even after the poisoning, I feel sure that everything would drop into place. That's what we should be looking for.
Okay, so we need to present the article to the final statement. Yeah, if there's, yeah, this is the one. So they want me to present this. Yeah. So it's this. Okay. So this is what they want me to do.
Well, I can think of one reason.
What?
But before I explain, I'd like you to confirm something for the court. Did you glean all the information for this newspaper article from what you overheard outside the hut?
Of course he did! There could be no question of that. After all, when we were all in the laboratory together, all we were told is that it was a terrible toxin.
And there is one more important fact to consider. According to the witness, Mimbami-san's verbal attack against the victim began as soon as she entered the hut. In other words, it would have been impossible for her to have slipped the poison into Miss Brett's drink. Where are you going with this, counsel? Minimimo-san has made it quite clear that he observed every single thing that happened in the beach hut. If the defendant had somehow found an opportunity, this man would have seen it. Ah!
Which means that Miss Brett couldn't have imbibed the poison whilst the defendant was present. In fact, it must have been administered to her before Mimbami-san entered the hut. Yes, very articulately put.
When I walked into the hut, I immediately started to press Miss Brett about the poison. At which point, Minimimo-san overheard some worrying information.
Worrying information? What worrying information?
The information which he subsequently included in this newspaper article, namely, that the poison was being developed in strict secrecy and that it couldn't be readily obtained.
Absolutely. In fact, that's quite an understatement. The only possible place it could come from is my lab.
And furthermore, anyone afflicted by the poison would exhibit telltale signs in death. The extreme constriction of the pupils. Yes, it's quite stark when you see it. There are other poisons that show similar symptoms, but not among new substances that are undetectable. In other words, it would be clear that the victim's life had been ended by the use of this particular poison.
I see where they're going with this.
Which would reduce the number of suspects to only a handful of people.
Ah! Everyone in my laboratory is aware of the unique properties of the toxin we've been developing. None of them would be foolish enough to attempt to use it for some nefarious deed. Mimbami-san being no exception.
Therefore, we can conclude that whoever administered this unique poison to the victim was a layperson unaware of its telltale properties. In other words, someone like you. Write in mini memo. Ah!
I love the theme. It's actually a good cornered slash pursuit theme. Because it just really fits the feel of this game. Just listening to it on its own, I can't really vibe with it that much, but, you know,
just listening to it in the context of the game, which is what it's made for, it's great. It actually feels like I've done something, especially the part that's going on right now. Yeah, I just like it.
It was you who stole the poison from her laboratory that day, and it was you who administered it to the unwitting victim. But you quickly realized that was a terrible mistake, because the poison caused such unusual symptoms and was so traceable.
Oh, I thought there was more. It was just the end of that sentence.
As you listened in from the far side of the beach hut's thin walls, you learnt of these facts. But you'd already given the victim the poison at that point. It was too late. So you hatched a plan to disguise your mistake. A plan that involved stabbing the victim in the back through the read screen.
But what good could that possibly do?
Isn't it obvious, Counsel? The plan was to kill Miss Brett before the poison could take effect.
Once in the blood, the poison causes the onset of pupil constriction. But he had hoped to precipitate the victim's death before that happened, hadn't he?
Exactly. Because without any revealing signs of the new secret poison's use, no one would ever have suspected.
This is extraordinary.
Yes, the effects of the poison meant it would be too easily identified, so the killer had to mask its use. Which he attempted to do by plunging a knife into the middle of the victim's back.
But that didn't work because, he didn't stab her in the right place. She had time to live afterwards, and time for the poison to take effect. Order, order, order! The argument presented is sound. The court is satisfied that it warrants consideration. Does the prosecution have a counter-argument it wishes to put forward?
Well, there are a number of... yes, I counter completely.
That's a great argument there, buddy.
The prosecution's evasive response clearly shows that in much the same way as he nurtures the remnants of his top knot, he is clinging to lost hope.
Wow. Oh, this poor man and his poor hair. Actually, no, fuck him. To be quite honest, yeah, just fuck him.
The lost hope!
Of course. He's gonna say, that's nice conjecture, but where's your proof? And we have it, of course. Because you were stupid enough to leave the pen at the crime scene. Damn! That was a charged forward smash right there.
Ah, you pathetic, useless, fallen samurai! Fallen? Who are you calling fallen? My burgeoning growth is on the right. I don't need a counter-argument.
What are you talking about?
It should be blatantly obvious. I stole the poison, you say. Gave it to the victim, you say. I stabbed her, you say. Lots of fine theories. But I don't need a counter-argument because you don't have an argument yourself. Where's your evidence? Yes, you make it all sound so plausible, don't you? But without evidence, it means nothing. Whereas I base my news on facts.
Facts? What do you mean? Explain yourself.
I mean what the professor said earlier in this trial. It's all here, in my mini memos.
Oh my god. That's what it is? That's the pun for your fucking name? Writing mini memos. Oh my fucking god.
The game! Localization team! It's all here, in my mini memos. Every word, every slip of the tongue, all noted. That's what the Shoyu News is famous for. It's the power of the printed word.
But surely it would have been no easy task to steal a highly secret toxin being developed for the government. Indeed, all visitors to the lab are thoroughly searched when they leave. Even if a thief managed to avoid being seen by myself or a colleague, getting the poison out would be very difficult. Oops, I hit the fucking court record button. Alright. Flashback over.
How's that then? Blown the story wide open? See, I, write in mini memo, are a mere reporter from the Shoyu News. Couldn't possibly have stolen that poison from the professor's lab. Ah!
But there can't be any question of it. He must have stolen the poison that day. He stole it and used it to kill. And if that's the case, as you've identified, the poison itself is the definitive evidence we need. Because whoever stole it from the lab that day is the true culprit here.
What's your point, you annoyingly handsome country bumpkin? Annoyingly handsome. That's the most, like, backhanded compliment I've heard in a long time.
My point is this. There is one way that you, Minimemo-san, could have stolen the poison that day.
Ugh! I have heard enough verbal conjecture now, thank you. What the court must be shown is evidence. What proof do you have that this witness stole the poison on the day in question?
Well, we do have some proof, but we're gonna present it in the next episode, because this one's nearing an hour, and I feel like we're gonna need enough time for the epilogue and everything. So, gonna take a break, and then, in the next episode, we're gonna nail this guy down. We're gonna nail him down. We're gonna use this chemical reagent on the fucking pen that was at the crime scene held by Miss Giselle Brett. And that's gonna be it. That's gonna be it. So, I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you guys for watching. Bye-bye!